Hey YouTube, this is Zach with Achilles Financial. Today I want to talk about Apple, in particular, what is a share buyback? Because today Apple announced that they are going to be purchasing or repurchasing $90 billion worth of Apple stock. So why is this important? Why is this good for shareholders? First and foremost, whenever we talk about a share buyback, it is the exact opposite of a share issuance, which tends to cause stocks to go down because it adds additional dilution because they are selling additional ownership of the company for a set price. Companies who are purchasing their shares, this is considered to be a good thing because they believe that the best use of their money is to reinvest it back into their stock and cause the shares outstanding to decrease. You can see right here that right now Apple has nearly $17 billion in total shares, coming in right at $16.8 billion. The reason that this is important is because companies are defined as their earnings per share, also known as the EPS, to define various ratios. Right now, the earnings per share, just to showcase what this will look like, is representative of right now we're going to be looking at the trailing 12 months, which is the last 12 months or the last 4 quarters worth of earnings over the share price. So generally speaking, the higher the EPS, the better, because that means that from a valuation perspective, your shareholders are getting more money for each share that they own. So Apple has a very good EPS of $3.70, which lends itself into the price to earnings ratio of 36.42. Admittedly, this isn't inclusive of today's after hours info. How is this calculated? How do we get to that point in time? So if you are utilizing TD Ameritrade like I am, you can actually see the quarterly EPS here on the screen, and you can see that Q1 is consistently representative of a very strong quarter for Apple, having been the highest quarter the past few years. You can see here that they had a strong beat today, and they actually beat pretty strongly on the revenue side as well. But the way that you would calculate a TTM, or trailing 12 months earnings, would be to take Q1, Q4 2020, Q3 2020, and Q2 of 2020, add that earnings per share. So that's going to be here on the screen, what you see right here, the non-GAAP actual of $1.68 added to the 0.73, 0.65, and 0.64. That will then give you the total value of that 3.7 that we saw earlier on this screen over here, where you see the 3.7 here for EPS. The way that this is being calculated, of those are our earnings, how do we get to that PE ratio? How do we get to the value that the stock is providing? If we actually go into the fundamentals and we dive into the income statement, you'll actually get a lot of additional detail. I'm going to be scrolling down so you can see the net income. This is what is being utilized. This is the income that is allocated for the shareholders. You can then scroll down and you can see the EPS reconciliation, where right now we've got the total shares outstanding. You can see that Apple has continued to buy back their shares over time, and then how that relates to the EPS. So what is happening here, or what is being included, is that as the shares are reduced, the EPS goes up. One of the reasons we saw such a big increase here, though, is because, of course, we do have an increase in the overall earnings as well. This is important to note because this shows how much value are you as a shareholder receiving. So now the question is, inclusive of this information, what is there going to benefit for my stock overall? How does this benefit me? So before we get to that piece, I want to highlight the last item that we did just see right there as well, is that you do get a dividend with this stock as well, and that annual dividend is going to be on top of the EPS that's technically allocated to you. So what happens if Apple goes and they buy back $90 billion worth of stock? And I'm going to showcase that utilizing Google Sheets. So here on the screen, as you can see, we've got the shares outstanding at 16.8 billion, our current trailing 12 months EPS of $3.70, our dividends of 82 cents, and the current price of $136.56, which we just saw in the last screen. I anticipate that this will change over time, considering the fact that they just had earnings. So what next? What do we want to talk about? How would this be impacted? Well, we've got $90 billion of share buyback that I'm going to apply at the current price to showcase what that would do to the overall stock. So if we scroll over here to the right, you can see how that is happening. And I have that $90 billion. I am then taking that $90 billion and dividing it by the current share price to showcase how many shares would we be purchasing. So if they took that $90 billion, purchased those shares today, which is not likely to happen. Generally speaking, share buyback programs are over a period of time. But you can see that if they were to buy that today, it would actually drop the outstanding share volume. Again, there may be some rounding errors in here, of course, but it would drop that outstanding share volume to right at 16.14 billion shares, which is a pretty substantial drop from their current outstanding shares that we highlighted over here of 16.8 billion. So what next? Well, what that would do under current situation, it would actually take the trailing 12 months, or it would provide us a new EPS for the trailing 12 months of 3.96. This is a 26%, or rather 26 cent increase over the current EPS of $3.70. So this would be an additional 26 cents allocated to every share that is currently outstanding. And this is why there is a huge benefit to this, because it continuously adds value back into the shareholders' pockets. Now, it'll be interesting to see the price of the shares over time, because this is going to determine, is there additional value for a shareholder to own this stock? And if the company is willing to invest in the stock, then it should lend itself that the shareholders should be willing to invest in it as well. So all of this information can be seen or utilized using websites like Investopedia or other outstanding sources such as YouTube. But if you'd like to follow along and see some of the additional content I put out, feel free to hit the subscribe button down below. And if you have any questions, feel free to check out the Discord in the description down below or post a comment as well. So if you find this content helpful, please leave a like and subscribe, and I will talk to you later.